The wildlife, of course, is magnificent, excellent. I can't believe you see some of these things up close and personal.
It's been really great to see everything firsthand, to reiterate what I've learned.
I came out here thinking that we had a battle on our hands, that they didn't realise how important Kenya was and how lucky they were to have the biodiversity they do.
And I've learned a lot from the kind of like the local cultures here, especially the Maasai as well.
When I get back, I'll be looking at lots of things in a completely new perspective.
It's just amazing. I've really enjoyed it.
East Africa's world renowned for its large mammals, and although many people are very interested and excited by large mammals, we do encourage the students to appreciate the full range of biodiversity on the trip. We look at plants, we look at insects, we look at birds, and whenever we come across reptiles and amphibians, we also look at them. Kenya has had a lot of conservation problems in the past, but has generated a lot of great conservation methods, which are great to study in context and mean a lot more when we actually are speaking to the people on the ground and seeing the conservation in practice. Our MSc course at the Como campus for University of Exeter is, we believe, an excellent hybrid of allowing practical conservation insights with high academic standards, and then building upon that to have this really truly excellent experience in Africa just rounds off the whole course. One of the first places we go is Naivasha in the Rift Valley, and obviously the Rift Valley has very interesting biodiversity, has salt lakes, freshwater lakes, but also it's an area of growing economic development in Kenya, and that leads to a lot of conservation conflicts, but also some conservation solutions. We go out on the boats and see hippos and the massive diversity of avifauna that's there. We visit a riverine gorge with Maasai guides where Tomb Raider was filmed because it's such an interesting place. We visit a chameleon farm to get insights into some of the initiatives related to sustainable utilisation of wildlife which are beginning in Kenya.
I thought it was interesting for students to see an example of potentially sustainable use of wildlife, and it gives an opportunity to discuss the pros and cons of whether breeding chameleons for pet trade is right or wrong.
I'm just feeling a bit sorry for the chameleon actually.
As long as he enjoys it, I don't mind.
We visit a private conservancy which is based around a crater, and we have a fantastic walk with trained local naturalists looking at plants but also some birds and quite a number of animals on the banks of Lake Naivasha.
Use this one to make arrows. Okay? But don't try this one, the arrows are not good.
We also visit one of the industrial scale flower farms which are responsible for producing about 90% of the cut flowers sold in the UK, and have discussions with the management about how they are dealing with some of the environmental problems that they've had in the past.
Everything is sustainable. Everything we think about is sustainability. We save money. If we're now environmentally, using our water, recycling it, it means we're not having to put all this new fertiliser in. New fertiliser is kept in the water and still goes around our crop.
Was it your decision to instigate this change to be more environmentally friendly?
It's our decision to do it, yeah. We're trying to innovate it, so basically we are trying to get there before we're told by a third party that we haven't done enough.
Being a conservationist, you'd be anti any sort of development right near a sort of natural resource like the lake. But actually when we went to the flower farm and you see the economic side of things and how the community benefits through employment, it kind of changes your perspective and the way that they were doing their best to be environmentally friendly.
We visit a semi-fenced national park where one is able to walk on foot with the wildlife because of the absence of large carnivores, and that's very exciting just to be out there and walking with zebras and giraffes and warthogs.
So cool, isn't it? I didn't know you get so close to it.
The next place we visit is Lake Nakuru, which is an excellent example of fortress conservation. It's a totally fenced national park which contains one of the major foraging lakes for the flamingos, as well as a range of all the other Rift Valley wildlife, including rhinos, for which it was fenced to protect them. And so that is the time when the students start to see the real immense biodiversity of Africa. Once we leave Lake Nakuru, We head more into the Highlands and we go to stay in Narumoro, which is an excellent base from which we visit Solio Ranch, which is a private conservancy, which it would have to be considered has been largely responsible for the successful conservation and growth of the rhino population in Kenya. It's a private ranch which has been fenced and patrolled, and the rhinos have then started to be translocated back to the national parks from where they had been extirpated during the times when poaching was uncontrolled.
We're looking at a black rhino that we finally managed to see, and it's staring right at us, so we get a really good view of the difference between the white and the black rhino. The black rhino is critically endangered, but the white rhino is, I think, near threatened, so the black rhino is obviously a lot more exciting to see because there's not so many of them left.
All the way around the trip we interface with the people working on the ground.
We thought it would be important for them to have people speaking to them who are directly involved in conservation and who have hands-on experience in trying to implement interventions.
It leads into great discussions about exclusion of communities from resources and the nature of private conservation and who owns the animals and how should the animals then be used and how should the revenue be used. Some issues which are actually quite controversial in Kenya itself.
I think it kind of highlights, we live in a market economy and wildlife has to pay its own way. If it didn't make money, because they could just knock the fences down and put the cattle in.
One of the great features of Kenya's geography is Mount Kenya, but we're ecologists and conservation biologists, so we're not particularly interested in climbing to the peak. But what we do is we have a really long all-day hike where we walk from the gate through the national park, through the forests, and then as we climb up the mountain we pass through the different ecological zones, through the bamboo, and then the people that are most able to deal with as the slopes increase can even get up as far as the alpine zone where there are fantastic giant endemic plants, and it is an adventurous day. Everyone is very tired at the end of the day, but everyone has a great time and we see great biodiversity.
We saw some leopard poo. You could see the fur and the bones in it. Also, there were some markings on the sides of the roads that we thought might have been elephants. I've never been this high ever, I don't think. And this is Africa still, and it's so different to what we've been seeing before, like with the dry plains so we've got all these different ecosystems that we've been walking through, and I think that's been amazing.
The end of the trip is 3 days in the Masai Mara National Wildlife Reserve. This is where there is the greatest abundance of wildlife and the greatest chance of seeing carnivores, but also is almost a case study for many of the conservation problems which we've encountered in different ways in different places around the rest of the trip. And we're able to discuss with the Maasai, with other local conservationists, with their guides, whilst also being able to go and see lions and leopards, and cheetahs and elephants and many thousands of antelope in a really fantastic setting. It's not all sugar-coated. We do also see the downside of tourism active in the Mara, because when there's a carnivore, tourists want to see carnivores, and we get to see firsthand just how intense the pressure on wildlife can be when there is active wildlife tourism associated with them. The fact that the community is very much involved both with the conservation problems but also with some of the conservation solutions related to tourism and conservancies. And so we always have Maasai guides and get to find out a lot about the culture and their indigenous knowledge of the region. We undertake a cultural visit to a manyata, a small homestead. We're exposed to a very tourist-orientated experience, but one which is great fun for the students, but is also very much contributing to the community by the fact that we're here for the wildlife.
Yes.
So after 2 weeks travelling around Africa, getting up at 5 o'clock every morning, having seminars in the evening, maybe a beer before you go to your tent, really we're actually very tired. But there's always a great ending to the safari because we're all gathered together, and in true British academic style we have a party. And when in the Masai Mara, the party begins somewhat more differently than most of the parties the students usually attend.